everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. So this is a tag that has been going around for years on BookTube. It was originally created by Chami and Ellie. I will leave who still has a channel link down below so you guys can see it. But like I said, this is now a staple video on BookTube to discuss how we've been doing for the last 6 months of the year. We are now officially halfway through 2025, and we have some questions here just to sort of reflect on our reading. So without further ado, we are going to jump right on in. The first one says, the best book that you've read so far in 2025. Now, I think I read this book back in January? Is that right? My favorite book of the year has not changed so far. It was either January or February, but it's The Prospects by K.T. Hoffman. This is a baseball romance. I am not a sports person, but I really loved this book, and I loved how much the characters loved baseball. But basically this is a romance. It's a male-male romance where one of our main characters is also trans, and it's sort of a rivals to lovers, enemies to lovers type of situation. Maybe even second chance romance in that way, because both of the characters that we're following in here knew each other in college before they started going into the minor leagues and things like that. But since then, they've not really talked to each other. They've been playing on separate teams, and now they have to play together because one of the guys gets transferred onto our main character's team. And I just absolutely loved the dynamic here. I loved the characters. We have a lot of diversity in here as well. Obviously, we have people of color, we have the LGBTQ nature, but not even just them. One of the coaches or something like that is also a lesbian. And then we also have disability representation as well. One of the side characters here is the husband of another baseball player. He is deaf, but we also have characters that have ADHD and anxiety, a very high level of anxiety where we actually need a service animal as well. I 100% love this book so much. I need to see if this author is going to do more stuff. So far, I think this is the only one, but I loved it. Number 2, the best sequel you've read so far in 2025. So I have read some sequels, but I wouldn't necessarily say I have a best sequel. I'm cheating slightly because I'm going with Bookshops Bonedust by Travis Baldree. This is a prequel, but you should technically read Legends and Lattes first. I absolutely loved Legends and Lattes. 5 out of 5 stars. I think I actually talked about it last year in my mid-year book freakout tag, and I read this last month. Again, 5 out of 5 stars. It is slightly different because of the fact that it is a prequel, and Legends and Lattes is so cozy. The epitome of cozy, because Viv is retiring from being a mercenary and going off and doing things with battles and adventure and retiring to create a coffee shop, and it's all about her doing the building and renovating and finding the menu for her shop, and I absolutely love that one. This one, because it is the prequel, has a little bit more adventure. It is still cozy in the fact that Viv is the main character and we know she's in Legends and Lattes. There's not super high stakes, but we do have a little bit more romance in here than Legends and Lattes, a little bit more adventure, a little bit more stakes, and I just really loved this. Again, I don't know if I can necessarily pick which one's my favorite, because I know some people have said this is better than Legends and Lattes for them. They're very different for me, but I absolutely loved this as well, and so even though it's a prequel, not a sequel, we're going with it. Number 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I have quite a few that could fit for this because of the fact that I have purchased a little bit more than I've read this year so far, and by a little I mean a lot. But the one that I went to is the Grimoire Grammar School Parent-Teacher Association by Caitlin Rozakis. The reason I picked this one is just because out of looking at everything that I currently have, this one seems to call my name a little bit more. This is going to be more of a cozy fantasy, but also our main character is a mom whose kindergartner gets bit by a werewolf and now has to go to the Grimoire Grammar School, which is more of a magic school, and she has to figure out all this sort of magic stuff while being a parent to a kindergartner who's basically now a werewolf. And I just like the idea of this sort of like mundane sort of activity of like being a parent and the PTA and taking your kids to school and stuff, but then also we're now in this fantasy setting with magic and stuff, and I definitely need to read this. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. We all know me. I don't have just like one anticipated release, so I do have 5. Pretty much one per month. I don't have a ton of things that are coming out in December just because publishing seems to like slow down around that time, but I have so many books that I want to read. I actually need to do my new releases for like the 3rd quarter of this year because I'm a little bit behind on that, and I know there's probably a ton that we need to talk about. So the ones that I have here today are just a small sample of the books that I definitely want to read. The first one is Roll for Romance by Lenora Woods. This one is coming out on July 15th. This is going to be a romance, and 2 fledgling tabletop gamers find themselves falling for each other, both in and out of their weekly D&D sessions in this charming fantasy-tinged romance. I am all for a geeky romance, and I absolutely love this cover. I actually have an e-arc of this, so I do need to read that soon, but I am like so excited for this. And then the next one is Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz. This one is coming out on August 5th. And it's going to be a cozy near future novella about a crew of abandoned food service bots opening their very own restaurant. Again, I absolutely love this cover, and I love this idea so much of a cozy sci-fi. Like, I feel like we need some of those, especially since cozy fantasy seems to do so well. Like, I love that. So a cozy sci-fi, yes. Then I have I Killed the King by Rebecca Mix and Andrea Hanna, coming out on September 16th. This one is going to be YA, and it says it's One of Us is Lying meets Knives Out with beasts, murder, and magic in the first book in a thrilling locked room whodunit YA fantasy duology. All of that sounds amazing to me. Again, love the cover, and so I definitely need this one. The next one that I'm excited for is Cinder House by Freya Marske. This one is coming out on October 7th. I want to say this is another novella because it's under 200 pages. And it says sparks fly and lovers dance in this gorgeous, yearning Cinderella retelling. It's a queer gothic romance. And from my understanding, this is because Ella is haunting the building where she died at 16, and she's invisible to everyone except her stepmother and stepsisters. It is a retelling of Cinderella, so I'm very curious to see how this is going to work. And then finally, we have Brigands Breadknives by Travis Baldree coming out on November 11th. This is the actual sequel to Legends and Lattes, although it's following a character we were introduced to in the prequel, Fern, who owns the bookstore, and I need this one. I loved Fern so much in Bookshops and Bonedust, and I just really want to see where this is going to go. We have Fern, and then she's in the company of a legendary warrior surviving on inertia, an imprisoned chaos goblin with a fondness for silverware, and an absolutely thumping hangover. I need to see where this is going to go. I don't know exactly if we're going more into the coziness of like Legends and Lattes or a slightly more adventure like Bookshops and Bonedust, but it does say it's the cozy fantasy world of Legends and Lattes, so I need it. Number 5, your biggest disappointment. Okay, so this one I do want to preface it by saying that I still gave this book 3 stars. It was more a disappointment for me because it wasn't as good as this author's other books, and it's going to be Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I absolutely love the Shadowhunters world. I have given every single book in that world like 4.5 or 5 stars. One of my favorite things, and it has been since I was in high school. So I picked up her adult work. This is very different, and I think that's the biggest thing is I love Shadowhunters for it's urban fantasy, but it has like lots of character and relationships, and there's some romance, and there is adventure and things like that, and world building, but it's very quick paced, and that's the main focus. This was very slow. The characters are not necessarily the biggest focus. It's very like epic fantasy, building the world, and it's so much of that. It just feels like it takes forever. It's like a huge novel. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't necessarily think this is for me. I also read book 2, which I gave 3.5 stars. So it was slightly better to me than this one, but it is very, very different from Shadowhunters. If you don't like Shadowhunters, but you do love epic fantasy, you might like this more. And to me, it's the biggest disappointment because I was just assuming that I was going to love everything she ever does, and this is really more not my thing. So it is more of a me problem than a her problem, but it did not live up to where I wanted it to be. Number 6, the biggest surprise. For this one, I'm gonna go with a children's book, and by that I mean a chapter book. I did classify it as middle grade, like in all my spreadsheets, and we talked about this in my wrap-up for the month that I read it. But I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, and it's The Story of Gumluck the Wizard by Adam Rex. I have read some other Adam Rex, like, picture books that I have absolutely loved, so, like, I knew I was probably going to enjoy this, but I really, really loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I knew I was enjoying it as I was reading it, but by the time I got to the end, I was in love with this, and I definitely need to read more. So this is a children's chapter book, and it has illustrations throughout, which is amazing because Adam Rex does the illustrations for, like, his picture books and things like that. And we follow this little wizard who people don't really like. And then we also have this raven who is actually narrating the story, and it's basically about Gumluck and the little adventures that he goes on. Like, he ends up with a ghost haunting his hair at one point. But the messaging of this, especially with it being a children's chapter book, was amazing. Like I said, I was really enjoying it when I was reading it, but by the time I got to the end, I loved it. Number 7, favorite new author, a debut author, or one that is new to you. For this, I was debating a little bit only because I have some new authors and I have some new books that I really enjoy, but I haven't read a ton from these new authors, or they haven't been like a 100% standout favorite necessarily. However, one of the authors I have read 2 books from and actually really did enjoy them, and that's going to be Catherine Arden. I haven't read like her Bear and the Nightingale series or anything, but I've read these ones, the middle grade horrors. I gave Small Spaces 4 stars, and I gave Dead Voices 5 stars. And so I think that definitely is telling me something in the fact that, like, I liked it more as we went. Like, I know there's more in this series, at least a couple more I want to say, so I definitely want to continue. But these are paranormal, sort of horror type of stories. The second one is a little bit more scary in places than the first, which I did really appreciate. And I liked the characters and the friendships and things. And I liked how it progressed from book 1 to book 2. So I definitely want to continue more. And I really, really enjoyed these. And even though I'm not quite sure the Bear and the Nightingale are my type of stories, because I like these, I'm more intrigued by those now. Number 8, newest fictional crush. These ones are always harder for me to answer because I do think I need to pick something from a romance, but at the same time, it's not necessarily about me as the reader with those. Like, I saw this debate recently on like threads of like people that like self-insert into romance and things like that versus like just reading the story and reading the romance for the 2 characters that are in the book. And I'm that second one. I'm reading the romances for the 2 characters and like, is this person good for this person? Not like, is the romance guy or whatever it is for me. However, I really, really did like this book. I really, really liked the romance, and I really liked the characters, and so I'm gonna go with Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. The main guy here is named Callum. I really loved the discussion of the asexuality spectrum here. So this is technically a queer romance, even though we have a female main character and a male love interest. I really, really love this one. I loved the discussion that we had here. He is basically the owner of a mortuary, and he does like the funeral stuff and the embalming of bodies and all this kind of thing. And she is actually a widow who has moved overseas from like Texas to Ireland because her husband died, obviously, and now she's finding a new job and trying to figure this stuff out. And it's friends to lovers, which I absolutely love. Everything about this was just like really, really thoughtful and well done. And so again, while I don't know if he's necessarily my newest fictional crush in that way, I absolutely loved them together and their romance, and so I had to mention it here. Number 9, your newest favorite character. So this one was also sort of hard, but I'm gonna be going with Melissa, Rick, and Green from Alex Gino's middle grade books. I absolutely loved this sort of companion novel series about these middle school kids. Melissa is when they're in 4th grade, Rick is when they're in 5th grade, and Green is when they're in 7th grade, so they do actually age up throughout. We get introduced to some of the characters in other characters' books, but they're figuring out who they are and their identities, both gender identities and sexual/romantic identities. We have lots of good talk about trans identities and being non-binary and asexuality and aromanticism, and then like the spectrum of everything else in between as well. But I think I just really loved the idea of sort of almost growing up with these kids as they figure out their identities and things like that. So this is very much like a coming of age sort of story. They're very middle grade focused, obviously. I think these are really good introductions to the characters, but also the topics that they bring up. And so I just absolutely love these and the characters. Number 10, a book that made you cry. I'm going with Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I recently read this, and yeah, every single story in here, there's like 4 of them, gets a little bit more heart-wrenching as you go, but I think it was absolutely beautifully done. This book focuses around a cafe where if you sit in a certain chair there, you can technically travel back in time, and the different reasons that these people want to do that. And I love the fact that it was all set in this one cafe, so even though we have 4 different stories, it shares characters in common, and technically by the time you get to the 4th story, you sort of know where it's going to be going, but I absolutely loved it. Like I said, heart-wrenching, especially as you go. We do deal with topics of Alzheimer's and death in the family and chronic and terminal illnesses and things like that, but I absolutely loved this one. It does have sequels, and I need to read them. Number 11, a book that made you happy. I'm gonna be cheating with this one slightly, only because this is more of like a series that has been making me happy, and it's gonna be Snow White with the Red Hair by Sarada Akiduki. This is a manga series that I have now read the first 6 books of. It's like a 20-something book series, but I have loved every single volume. 5 out of 5 stars. This is like the perfect slow burn romance type of thing. We follow a girl who is Snow White. In the first book, it sort of leans into that retelling a little bit more, but we definitely deviate from that after that. But basically, she's escaping her kingdom because the prince of her kingdom wants to betroth her to him, or make her a concubine or something like that. Like, I have no idea the exact, like, if she would have been the wife or if she would have just been a mistress type of thing, because she has bright red hair, and it's very rare to have that. She escapes the kingdom, runs away, and a guy shows up there with his friends, and they help her out, and he turns out to be the 2nd prince of the neighboring kingdom that she had escaped to, and things go from there. It is, like I said, a really, really good, like, slow burn romance type of thing. There's so much, like, pining and things, which I absolutely love. Like, every single volume has been phenomenal, but it is set in this, like, medieval sword and shield fantasy world, so we do have some adventure and kingdom politics and things like that as well. Like, every single volume so far has made me so happy. It's like a 20-book series, so I'm gonna have to read a whole lot more of this, but I'm not mad at it because I absolutely have been loving it. Number 12, the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. And for this one, I think I picked something similar last year. It has to be an Illumicrate edition of a book because they are gorgeous. And this one, I think I'm going with Watermoon by Samantha Sato Yambao. I have not read this yet, even though I've put it on like 2 TBRs now. But like, it is gorgeous. Already the original cover of the book was gorgeous, but I think this edition is phenomenal. Like, I love the art style on the dust jacket. I love that we have it sort of reflected as well on the edges. And then you can't get around how gorgeous the naked hardcover with our like paper cranes moving into real cranes. And like, it feels like a texture, like a paper or a fabric texture, which I love. And then again, the end papers are gorgeous. Everything about this book is so, so pretty. I need to read it. This is another technically cozy fantasy that's inspired by like Studio Ghibli sort of stuff. So I need to read this. Like I said, I've put it on Tube TBRs. Remind me to pick this up. And then finally, we're on to question number 13. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? So many. I've already told you I could put Watermoon back on a TBR. Like, I have so many things I need to read. But what I'm going to mention here is the fact that I'm in the middle of 2 books still, and have been for a while. The first is Behooved by M. Stevenson. This was an arc that I started before the book came out, and I think things happened in life that I just had to put it down, didn't pick it back up. The date that it was published came and went, and so I need to read this. This is a sort of like fantasy romance where I believe the love interest has been cursed or something to be a horse. And so there are things around that I don't 100% remember, but I was very, very intrigued, and the cover's gorgeous, so I need to read it. And then the last one I have here is Flashback by Shannon Messenger. This is the Keeper of the Lost Cities series, book 7. It's huge. It's a middle grade, so it should be very quick to actually like read. And it was. I picked this up in a video where I did like a scavenger hunt to find my next read on my bookshelves. And then it turned up to be this one because I was gonna read the book in that video, but it's like, what, 700 pages? 800 pages? 840. And so I was like, yeah, that's not happening. But I was in a reading slump. I knew I was getting into a reading slump, and so I was like, you know what? This is the perfect book to get me out of the reading slump. And it did. I read 11 chapters, over 200 pages of this in like 1 or 2 days. But then it got me out of the reading slump, and I knew I had other things to read, like other arcs and things like that. So I picked those other things up and kept reading because it got me out of the reading slump, and never went back to this one because it never technically got put on an actual like TBR. So I need to finish this. This is something that I can definitely finish in under 6 hours. My Bookly app says it's gonna be like 5 hours and 50 something minutes. I could totally do this. I just need to like fit it in somewhere, and I will do it by the end of the year. I love this series. It's another middle grade. I love the series. I love the fantasy. I love the characters. I love the relationships. I love that this is book 7, and we have been growing with everybody so much throughout the whole thing. Like, I can't even mention what this is because it's book 7. I put it down. I should not have. I should have finished it. And it's been months now. I need to read this one. I will read this one. Keep me accountable. I will do it. But yeah, I need to read it by the end of the year. And so I think that is going to be it from me today. I love this tag. I love that it, like I said, sort of keeps us accountable for different things, like what do you need to read, what are you looking forward to, that kind of stuff. But it's also a really good way to just sort of talk about some of the things I have read already this year, things that I've liked or haven't liked. And so yeah, that is going to be it for me today. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos coming out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye!